Yes, it's time once again for the incredible Sunday night stream of death. I mean, Sunday night stream of woo.
You can't call it the stream of death, dude.
I know, sorry, wrong podcast.
The algorithm ain't going to like that kind of start to the show. You know? Hello,
Yeah.
Mr. Algorithm. Hello, audience.
Hello, algorithm.
You know, I was trying to tell the social media community out there that we were going live and things, and you just absolutely derailed the intro, dude.
That's why, yes. Absolutely.
And look who else is with us, ladies and gentlemen. We've got him here, Scotty Lopez, live in the digital house. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. Just trying to stay cool. We are in the midst of a pretty extreme heat wave that's kicking in. So
Same here, dude. Same here. Europe's cooking.
And with all this fancy production lighting that I got going on in here, it does make it a little.
Oh, you got some fancy production lighting, do you?
Yeah, it's called a lamp.
Ah, I see. Yes. Very nice.
See, I look best in the dark. I've still got a face for radio, so I'm slowly breaking people in to get decent lighting,
Yeah.
It's the way to do it, man. So yeah, great to see everyone turning up again in their numbers. This weekend streams, really, I like it. We watch Mr. Metaker. One day we'll have a stream as big as that, but he had to start somewhere as well. And I just love all the people we get coming every weekend to see what craziness we get up to. Last night was Area 51 with Charlie Robinson. Man, Charlie Robinson, he fairly embraces the woo. For somebody that writes quite a serious kind of author about all the quotes and things of the elites over the ages, but when you get him into the woo, man, oh man, does he love it, Joe, eh?
Yeah, it sure does.
He's an open-minded guy,
Yeah.
and you got to kind of keep an open mind on stuff like that. Of course, you can't just all, get sucked in and go to the extreme on everything, but it's always good to keep an open mind on stuff. And Charlie, he's one of those guys that, he just keeps an open mind on stuff, and he's willing to look into any topic, if he finds it interesting and if there's something there,
Absolutely. And I just want to remind everybody of the wonderful opportunity out there to introduce another emoji to you. And we only need about 42,000 more memberships. So get anybody that doesn't or isn't a member of this illustrious channel. I don't know. I wouldn't exactly say I'm begging you, but if you can, become a member. And as we get more members, we get more emojis, which the last one was the Scott Shrek, which is a very, very, very high quality emoji.
And may I add, because I did get a nasty message on Facebook about how I was taking liberties. Taking liberties indeed, poking fun at my friend by making him into Shrek. Scott, tell people who chose who to be the Shrek emoji, please.
First of all, Kev had nothing to do with that emoji.
That's right.
And it was yours truly.
It was
who created
self-deprecation. It was absolutely.
It was self-deprecation. I created the emoji in Photoshop, and I shot it over to Kev. He had no say in this.
How do you like
You see, we have this kind of motto on here. If you can't laugh at yourself, then you're not entitled to go laughing at anyone else. So we make jokes about ourselves on here. We're a bit different that way, a bit old school. I know the SJWs out there probably won't get that. But hey-oh, this isn't a stream that'll attract them anyway. But we've got lots of interesting stuff to get into tonight as well, Joe. You really inspired a lot of woo when you sent me a story. And for anyone out there, like Joe was saying, if you want to become a member, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, be awesome. And if you can't become a member, if you want to just, maybe donate to my good friend Kev here, then please do. The PayPal links in the description, as well as the super chat. If you want your chat read out by the super awesome
algorithm,
best friend in the world AI,
yeah,
then you
and don't
put super chat thingy, and we'll
keep the
put it up.
language. Keep the language clean on there, or it won't read it out. Yeah, and in the chat as well.
The AI is a soy boy. and gets very easily offended.
That's what
Very
we've got to remember in the chat room. We let anything go in the chat room, but you got to remember that the AI really is. It's like an
It's a social
adolescent.
justice warrior.
Yeah, it's just like it's teenage years, and it's kind of been programmed into being a social justice warrior. So you have to be really, really kind of overly friendly. So mods, keep that in mind. And yeah, we've got some interesting stuff to get into today. And like I say, Joe, you inspired this. And folks, I hope the conversation gets half as interesting on the stream as it was beforehand, because we hit full woo early talking about some of this stuff before we got going. So, Joe, you sent me a story today, and the reason it really, really kind of set my imagination on fire is because I've been covering a lot about the UFO topic lately. And we've been talking about the Pentagon stuff. We've been laughing about the chicken stuff. But the UFOs, I mean, I've really dived back into that topic because I enjoy it. Now, when you sent me the story, the first thing that came into my mind, and we'll get Joe to introduce the story in just a moment, but it was Project Bluebeam. And normally, Project Bluebeam is associated with the UFO topic, fake alien invasion, Carol Rosen's clip about Von Braun, the last card, all that kind of stuff. But I think probably a lot of people don't realize that Project Bluebeam comes in a number of stages.
Sure.
And there's a couple of build-up events that have to happen before you have that big finale. And the opening stage that comes in the document that was put together in the 80s or 90s, I believe, actually says that archaeological finds will call into question religious kind of beliefs, and it will start the ball rolling towards this big change, taking us towards this new world order, Joe. So tell me, is there any archaeological mysteries turning up, emerging from waters?
It's funny you should say that. According to CNN Travel, we have an ancient palace that emerged from drought-hit Iraq. A 3,400-year-old palace. That's very interesting. As basically in Kurdistan region of Iraq, the water's levels dropped to a point where this thing actually started showing up a little bit slowly but surely. As a matter of fact, the discovery of the ruins in the Mosul Dam reservoir on the banks of the Tigris River, very, very famous river now, the Tigris and the Euphrates in and around there is where they say life kind of started out. Well, that's the textbook variant of it, and also very prevalent in the book of Revelation as well. So a very important river there, but inspired a spontaneous archaeological dig that will improve understanding of the Mitanni Empire, one of the least researched empires of the ancient Near East. The Kurdish-German team of researchers basically said this, quote, "The find is one of the most important archaeological discoveries in the region in recent decades." So it's a pretty significant find. The palace would have originally stood just 65 feet from the river on an elevated terrace. A terrace wall of mud brick was later added to stabilize the building, adding to the imposing architecture. Ivana Puljids, an architect from the University of Tübingen Institute for Ancient Near East Studies, describes a palace known as Kemuni as a carefully designed building with mud brick walls up to 2 meters thick. Pretty thick walls. Some of the walls are more than 2 meters high, and various rooms have plastered walls, she added. The team also found wall paintings in shades of red, white, and blue. Oh, wow. That's nice. Even we hijacked history. Now, which were probably common features of the palace at the time, but have rarely been found preserved. So that's interesting how, oftentimes things go in the water and they get just destroyed. But in this case, it actually preserved.
You see down here as well, Joe, it says that they actually found clay tablets.
Tablets, in cuneiform. Yep. So that's awesome too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so who knows what the heck is there? And it says, from the text, we hope to gain information on the inner structure of the Mitanni Empire, its economic organizations, and the relationship of the Mitanni capital with the administrative centers in the neighboring region. Archaeologists first became aware of the site in 2010 when water levels were low, but this is the first time that they have been able to excavate. So the site was submerged shortly after the dig, and it's unclear when it will emerge again. So
Lucky
now
to
it's
get
back under
probably. Yeah, lucky to get what they did when they grabbed it then probably,
yeah,
you know.
yeah, very much so. So that's a very interesting thing. Again, I find um, it's just awesome that they find a piece of history, especially one as dated as that. You know, that's just fantastic. So
At this day and age, you know, I think we could just assume that we've pretty much found everything that there is to find. We see all of the documentaries on the History Channel and Nat Geo, and it feels like we've uncovered so much of the
you know what I
past.
wonder though? I'll be honest with you. I wonder because we often see how floods can cause rapid damage and will bury things in sediment in a very short period of time. And I just wonder how much of the pre-flood world actually still exists somewhere under hundreds of feet of sediment. You know
Yeah.
that no one has ever really got to, because where do you start first of all, you know? But like imagine, if you will, all of the stuff that's in the ocean that we have no idea is there or exists, or any sort of like evidence of prior empires, kind of like that pyramid down off the coast of Cuba, you know?
A pyramid near Cuba.
Yeah, it's right off the coast of Cuba. Let me see if I can find a story on it.
Yeah, I've got it here, man.
What was it? The ocean levels were
Yeah.
what, 400 feet lower.
Lower.
Yeah.
Yeah, because think about this. Before the flood, that's the one. The oceans of the deep, they were under the earth. They were inside the earth, all that water. And there were no oceans pre-flood.
So was the water?
It was all like lakes.
Did it come from that canopy that they said there was a water canopy in the sky, or did it come from
An ice
up?
canopy.
Yeah, did it come up?
Yeah, so you have like you have it was an ice canopy, and then these waters would send a mist up constantly. So it never rained. It was just kind of like a mist that happened, and then you had just bodies of water, but you never had oceans. There were no real oceans then. So the atmospherics were different. We've been through that before, but the ice canopy collapsed and the waters of the deep opened up. That's those big cracks that you see in the these big fissures and things. But that isn't that awesome, Kev? That those pyramids, it's like, how did that happen?
That's
You know?
miraculous. That's amazing. You know, you can just picture like some kind of Aztec or Mayan site looking at that, really.
And then, you know, after the flood, everything that settled back in the land became the aquifers that we have now, you know, so that's kind of how it worked. But that's an extensive complex in the ocean. Why would that be there? You know, was it the ancient mermaid empire? No, of course not. It's an ancient pre-flood civilization or city.
I wonder how many times it's been reset, Joe. I really do wonder. You know, imagine if we were to go back to when these places were thriving. They were pristine, they were operating, these civilizations were around. I honestly hypothesize, I speculate, there was probably archaeologists of their time as well. And they may have been digging up things and questioning, and, you know, who was here before us? What kind of things were they maybe turning up? Because I honestly think there's been many, many cycles. And we're going to be talking cycles and timelines and all sorts of woo as tonight's show progresses. But how many civilizations have been lost? How many times have we done this?
No, right. There's so much that we don't even have a grasp on, as far as the just the things that exist, as far as the megalithic stuff. We see the stuff that's on the surface, but it's the stuff underneath that's just so amazing. I know one thing is, you know, there's evidence of these coastal cities that, of course, been submerged, and a lot of speculation that it could be part of that Atlantean empire. And again, you know, pre-flood, there were no oceans. It was like lakes just you could get around. We'll put it that way. And so when I say seafaring empires of like Atlantis at the end, it was like lakes. It wasn't oceans, but they still had boats and stuff, and they were still able to get around. There was just much.
Yeah, they didn't have to traverse large oceanic bodies of water. They could just kind of hop from one area to another really easy, you know. So it's just because there just wasn't the amount of water on the planet at the time, you know.
Yeah. I'm trying to find some other stuff here to help.
Well, you've got the whole Antarctica thing as well, you know. I mean, what was that like back in the day? I was watching a video before we came on today. Probably can't play it because it looks like one of these kind of viral companies that will content match it straight away. But yeah, it was really well put together, and it was talking about, you know, the ancient structures, and at one point they were talking about the Piri Reis map as well. That's that kind of,
yeah, very. That's
just
unbelievable.
It's like a famous one, you know. And they say, I mean, on here, you've got the Antarctic coastline, and it's, you know, south of Africa. And then there's nothing to depict the fact it's covered with ice or anything like that. Nothing like that at all. And then it's not the only map where you see that things were a bit different whenever these maps were put together.
Okay, so let's see here.
What are you looking for, Joe?
So many different.
What are you looking for, man? Come on, what are you digging?
So there's all sorts of different sites to give evidence of a pre-flood civilization or different civilizations, and so I'm looking at let's see, 10 most mysterious ancient sites discovered around the world. So let's see here. You've got, first of all, send you a link here, Kev. That's the first thing.
I'm just welcoming in a few of the people in the chat room. We've got Nana in there. Armand.
Oh, very nice.
Yep,
very
and
nice.
Armand, I got Armand hooked up to the TuneIn Radio free version so he can listen to TFR again. We've been missing him over there at TFR. We've also got King Sweet in the chat room. I gave King Sweet a wrench today. And King, love you to bits, man. And I know I was saying how we've got to be careful in the chat room, but the odd profanity, we can allow that. We don't want to become the censors that we try to expose on a weekly basis now. So, yeah, loving it. Kaz Barkley in there. William, Annabelle, 99 Red, Thomas. We'll get back to the chat later on because we've got a question for the chat later on, and it's Mandela related. So, Scotty Lopez has already had his reality absolutely torn apart today, and we'll do it for everyone else out there in Chatland later. But
yes,
Joe,
we certainly will.
What did you find, man? What did you find? Okay, I've got it.
So, let's see here. What's in the grab bag? Number one, the unfinished obelisk of Aswan, Egypt. Have you guys ever seen that? It's an unbelievable obelisk. It's huge.
Yep.
Gigantic piece of stone that lies in the ancient quarries near Aswan, Egypt, standing 137 feet tall and weighing 1,200 tons. This single piece of rock was intended to be erected as an obelisk. Others believe that the obelisk was never finished because builders may have been violently interrupted. Some believe it was likely due to cracks which was formed in the stone during the quarrying. It was finished. The obelisk would have been, if it was finished, would have been a full third taller than any ancient obelisk known to us and would have been taller than a 10-story building. The mystery remains as to exactly how the Egyptians planned on transporting and erecting the obelisk, and when there were, of course, very few modern cranes that could have moved such a massive stone.
It's part of the same mystery as to how they build all the monuments back in Egyptian times, because they're all too big to be built the way we were told. But what do you think then, guys? What do you think the true purpose of these things were? And maybe I've been listening to Christopher Everard too much and things like that, but I think there's some kind of almost power transmitter, receiver, something like that.
I
Something
think
like
so. I'm thinking we're dealing with some kind of a transmission technology of some kind, energy
some
transmission.
sort of, yeah.
Yeah, giant antennas is basically what they were. I think, because we know that they were capped with some kind of a metallic, you know, capping on top. What do they use? Was it called electrum? It sort of was
Yeah.
a. It was a mixture of like gold and silver and some other metal. Um, but it was highly conductive for for electronics, electricity, electromagnetic
Yeah.
fields and stuff like that. So um, yeah, there's definitely something to the obelisk thing, and I think they were some kind of power transmitters, maybe
I-
ancient radio transmitters if
Could
you think
be
about it.
something
I mean,
something that has to do with frequency of some sort.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. So,
Certainly more than just a stone monument,
yeah.
at least in my eyes.
No, I agree with you. Some kind of alternative version of a Tesla coil, something like that.
Yeah, right. Possibly. Number 2, the Karnak stones
Oh,
in France. A dense collection of over 3,000 standing stones can be found around the French village of Karnak. The Karnak stones, which were erected between 4500 and 3300 BC, are the largest of such collection in the world. There are several theories as to what the purpose of the stones were. Some claim that they are aligned astronomically to create an observatory or a calendar system, while others believe that they were used as primitive seismic instruments. The balance stones act as earthquake detectors. France's Karnak site is also thought to support the megalithic yard, a controversial idea of theoretical common unit of measurement that would be used to build most megalithic sites. Interesting. So I don't know about that. But it's very hard to me visualize seeing this exactly what the true purpose is of these stones, but there's certainly I could see certainly like a some sort of calendar
yeah,
or sort of like astronomical tool.
yeah.
It's like rows of them, right? Because I've seen like aerial photographs of it, and these stones are just like arranged in rows,
Yeah.
almost like a stone sort of field, like if you were planting crops in a row, but instead it's stones that are laid out in rows, and very interesting, very very weird sight. Yeah, who knows what those were used for? I have no idea.
It was James Swagger used to come on KBS before he just disappeared off the face of the earth, off this timeline. Now, that's another mystery we could get into one night. If anyone out there knows or can get in touch with James, please tell him to hit me up, because it's been years now. Seriously, I'm quite worried. Who knows what happened to Swagger? But he was on a different level when he would talk about these things, and he would look at the acoustics around these stones as well, and the energies that they give off, and whether they're looking for maybe the natural ley line, the energetic grid in the planet. Maybe they're trying to, like acupuncture, just trying to get a circuit going. Who knows what this was all about? Lots of astronomical stuff with these ancient people as well, though, the night sky and things.
That's what someone said in the chat earlier, and forgive me if I don't remember who put that in the chat, but they said, these obelisks, if you think about it, those are grounded into the earth.
Yep.
That's stone that is just straight up grounded into the earth. And if you position these things on ley lines, you could be harnessing the natural energetics of the planet, using those. And then maybe you can transmit that energy out of the top. And you have other obelisks or other sites that can receive that energy.
Well, here you go, Scott. We've got Jennifer. Jennifer in the chat room. Everyone check out her YouTube channel. She's been doing some really good coverage of some of the kind of pandemic stuff that's going on right now. And she says, yep, it's essentially how blockchains are. They are nodes on a particular ley line And yes, they are all lined up to astrological sites. Hard to describe, but
Wow.
yes, it's all definitely all connected. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I certainly do. You know, Andrew was talking about how some of these pilots, um, military pilots especially, have seen, UFOs coming out of the water and things like that. And you have to wonder, we know that some of these cities have been submerged either at some point in time or buried under the ocean, or how crazy would it be if some of those cities were still occupied?
It would
And
be.
and that, these UFOs that they see, or is that's the way they, travel to and from?
You know, if I was to go full woo, full speculation, and I was an alien race visiting here or running the experiment here, because sometimes I do think we're in an experiment. But what better place is there to hide? It's a no-brainer. It's a
no-brainer. You
no-brainer.
hide underwater.
Yeah, I mean, we know more about the surface of bloody Mars than we do in places like the Mariana Trench and other places,
Totally.
So
Totally.
I'm totally down for that, dude.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
Number 3.
Oh, go ahead.
No, after you.
No, on you go, Scott. You throw yours in, man.
I was just gonna say, I've always been one to kind of entertain the whole hollow Earth theory, but lately I've been thinking, maybe it's not so much just like hollow Earth, but more of cavernous.
Yeah,
Earth.
porous.
Yeah,
Earth.
right,
Yep.
right, exactly.
Yep.
So you
Some of those caverns could have been formed, during a mass extinction level event or a flood type scenario, or maybe there was technology to where they had like a force field or something like that was able to keep that stuff out and preserve the city. And you know what I mean?
And Scott,
when we're talking about cavernous, we're talking about like giant blocks, giant areas, in the earth that are completely isolated and sealed off from the surface of the planet, and just maybe, certain access points or something like that. But you could have a cavernous area that spans hundreds, if not thousands of miles, and so it definitely does raise the possibility of underground civilizations.
Well, yeah, and look at H.G. Wells and Journey to the Center of the Earth, and you know how connected he was. And you, like I said, you have to wonder, did Wells know something? Because obviously he had some sort of knowledge. He was eerily accurate in predicting things like World War I and World War II, almost akin to like a Huxley, or an Orwell. Just very, very in the know. Wells even more so than I think a Huxley or an Orwell.
You think of Scotland over here where I am, and I was blown away just a few years ago when they discovered that there was tunnels, caves connecting Scotland to Turkey. I mean,
How crazy is that?
You're talking the other side of Europe there, Scotty, Joe. I mean, that's some kind of cave network down there. Imagine the civilization you could hide underground, that vast network, just that one alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how, even if they're not occupied by different beings, what if they got hijacked by, say, a government or governments or new world orders or whatever? Very plausible. Very, very plausible.
Yeah. What's the next one in Joda?
Number 3, the dolmens or passage mounds of Antequera, Spain.
This is
located
good.
in Spain, are 3 most important and some of the largest dolmens or passage mounds in the world. Cueva de Manga, Cueva de Vieira, and the Tholos of El Romero. I'm so white. And said, the site, which can be found near the town of Antequera, are believed to have been established around 3700 BC, making them a contemporary of many famous megalithic sites, such as Stonehenge. The largest stone used in the dolmen's construction weighed 180 tons and were transported from at least a mile away. Wow. Many of the mound's walls feature anthropomorphic illustrations. Manga is aligned with the summer solstice, and El Romero shares several traits and characteristics with Tholos dolmens discovered on Crete, which suggests contact with the Minoan civilization. So that's very interesting. You look at those. You look at the inside of that structure, and the fact that that was done in 3700 BC. It's just too, how should I say, advanced for our caveman type of understanding of ancient history. You know.
I mean, you really think that people were down there carving that out of chicken bones, and it's ridiculous to some of these megalithic structures for the technology that they say man possessed at the time. It just does not match up with what you're seeing with your naked eye, with what's actually there. There's no way that they could have produced that with what mainstream science said that they had available to them at the
Right,
time.
exactly. I got another example of that. Number 4, Gantia, Malta, on the Maltese island of Gozo, are 2 megalithic temples, which were constructed around 3600 BC, and this is exactly it. A time when they say metal tools were not available to the natives, and the wheel had not been invented.
See, there we go. So,
see what I mean? It's
see,
just, it's ridiculous.
See these ones
Obviously,
up here as well, Joe?
They're screwed up.
See the number 3 one, the picture here of the dolmen?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where Swagger and Maria Wheatley as well, she'll have had her on the show. But they talk about the acoustic properties, how this tunnel here and things like that, just for argument's sake, they go into how this is the perfect kind of dimensions for creating standing waves as well. And when you're talking about Malta, I think that's the site of the hypogeum as well. And this is somewhere where basically you can stand in one part of it and whisper, and the acoustics in the place, it sounds like
unbelievable.
It's beyond happenstance. It can't be coincidence that it just ended up so acoustically tuned,
there's definitely something going on with like resonance frequencies going on in these places. And we also have thrown out the sort of theory of acoustic levitation and stuff like that being utilized back then. And you got to wonder if some of these sites were actually some of these facilities where they acoustically levitated a lot of these stone blocks and things like that, and just other uses for acoustics and resonant frequencies. It's just there's a lot more going on there that I don't think we understand.
Well, a good question for you going to number 5, Joe. And it's from Roosevelt in the chat room. Again, sub to his channel, folks. It says, curious, what are your thoughts about why they want us to believe past civilizations were backwards? I think it's just the whole occulting of history in general. And if you can control that, then you can basically control the present and the future,
Yeah,
but
right.
not only that, there's some of the technologies that might have been there as well, guys, might have led us to the whole Eureka free energy moment. We know they've got free energy.
We can't have that.
Yeah, exactly. This would give us an alternative away from the oil and the petroleum and everything else that we're used to paying all of our bucks for, right?
That's right.
And that's just my thought, maybe.
You're right. You're right. At this site, they found figurines and statuettes associated with fertility, leaving experts to believe that Gantia may have been a site of a fertility cult. The stone temples are the second oldest religious structures ever found. And they're pretty intricate for no tools, right? So obviously, take a look at the picture by Evan Anderson there, Kev, and what you see are very accurately machined almost stones. These were not carved out with standard or even like stone tools, primitive hand tools. Not happening at all. So the next thing, and these are even more baffling, are the stone spheres of Costa Rica. Down in Costa Rica, there's over 200 stone spheres that range in size from a few centimeters to more than 2 meters in diameter and weighing 15 tons. Exact dating of the stones is impossible, but they're believed to have been carved anywhere from 1500 to 500 BC by a civilization that has long disappeared.
That's a civilization with big balls.
Yes.
Big balls.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's ancient bocce balls for the giants.
Hey,
Like pool. They were probably playing pool with those.
this for me, Joe, Scott, is like, it's like the claymore for us small Scotsmen. These balls, they look ornamental and crazy big to us, but that's just from our perspective. We're not factoring
when they played cricket.
Yeah, we're not they look like juggling balls for a big giant, probably do.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they were just stress balls that they were just kind of rotating around in the palm of their hand while they were sipping on their drinks.
Well, some legends claim that they're the relics of Atlantis, while others claim that whoever built the stones had some sort of potion that can soften rock.
I was going to say, you don't build them, you mold them.
Right.
Yeah,
and although
man.
the stones have been damaged over the centuries, many believe they were originally carved into perfect spheres. The purpose remains unknown. The next one, the Olmec heads in Mexico.
Oh.
Yeah, they're a collection of 17 colossal heads carved entirely from stone. The heads weigh between 6 and 50 tons and date from 1500 to 1000 BC. Each of the Olmec heads is carved with a unique headdress. And this led some people to believe that they're carved to represent the powerful Olmec rulers. Others claim that the head faces resemble that of an African male, suggesting that this may be evidence of an advanced African civilization visiting the Americas in prehistoric times. And, of course, the last picture of the Olmec heads you see here is one that was buried. They actually excavated it. So, like Easter Island, pardon me.
So what's really interesting about the Olmec culture is that people like Christopher Everard have done a lot of research into the Olmecs.
Do you not call them like ancient drug dealers and things?
Basically, I mean, there's a lot of, I would say pretty good argument to be made that the Olmecs were traversing across the Pacific Ocean and were actually involved in trade routes with the Egyptians. And, they've found mummies, pharaohs in Egypt that have traces of cocaine in them.
Right. And wow. Isn't that interesting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that over there.
Yeah. That's not a plant that's native to Egypt. That only comes from South America. And so how is that getting all the way to Egypt? And how are these pharaohs, how are they ending up with traces of cocaine in their system?
Just more evidence that kind of stuff happened.
Yes. And another very interesting thing is with these Olmec heads, if you look at the facial structure of them, they don't really match up very well with like the Aztecs and the Incas and a lot of these other civilizations that are in South America.
I was going to say Asian. They look almost Asian.
Yes. If you look at a lot of the Polynesian stone carvings, and stonework that you see in like Indonesia and a lot of those Polynesian islands and areas in between, basically North America and Asia, you see that a lot of the facial structure and a lot of the facial features are very similar to what you see in the Olmec carvings. So I think we're dealing with some kind of a seafaring civilization that had established trade routes between continents that, of course, mainstream science says none of these civilizations ever had contact with each other yet. They're all building pyramids and they're all doing the same thing,
So here's another example. So you talked about seafaring empires, and the fact that we're seeing similar architecture, similar statues all over the world. Well, number 6 is, or 7, pardon me, is an unbelievable monument in Japan, or off the coast of Japan, Yanaguni. A group of strange formations was found underwater off the coast of Yanaguni Island in 1987. The formations feature flat parallel edges, right angles, sharp edges, pillars, and columns. These features led many to believe that the site could be man-made.
Could be.
The last time the area where the Yanagumi monument is submerged would have been dry land about 8 to 10,000 years ago, during the most recent ice age, or should we just say?
Joe, nature doesn't do right angles, dude. Not like that. No.
This makes the monument one of the oldest structures on the planet, drastically changing what we know about prehistory. I mean, yeah, having a pyramid that resembles a Mayan pyramid off the coast of Japan, duh.
I mean,
you know what I mean?
Dude, it's obvious.
Sounds like those Olmecs were on the move again.
Listen, guys, listen.
Olmec.
This happens on the seabed all the time, you know. You go down to any seabed, you see this kind of thing. It's just a totally natural rock formation. It's just the waves have kind of randomly carved that out of the rock over time. Nothing to see here. Move along. Yeah, nothing.
And look at the sheer size of them.
That's like a sand castle building itself on the beach when a wave comes in. Doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
That's so funny. We also have evidence of a sunken city in the Gulf of Cambay in India. Using sonar, several man-made structures were identified, including canals and large buildings. Artifacts were also found, including pottery shards and hearth materials that were dredged up from the bottom. One piece of wood was found that was dated from as early as 9500 BC. And if the city really existed back then, well, it would be thousands of years older than the previous oldest city found in India, and would have existed thousands of years before humans were thought to be building cities of this size.
Now we're getting back to the Gobekli Tepe time range, Joe.
Timeline, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big time. And Roosevelt in the chat room speaking your language. Wow. Proof of a flood.
Yeah, exactly right. Or, you know, that could be evidence of a pre-Adamite civilization, much like a Gobekli Tepe or other ancient, kind of like Randall Carlson highlights.
Look at that there. That looks like a statue of some kind of dude, right? Unless I've got pareidolia going on here, because I'm seeing a nose and a couple of eyes, you know?
Okay.
That's weird stuff, man.
Okay, now we have number 9, Moai, Easter Island. Of course, Easter Island's one of the most remote inhabited islands on the earth. Here lies one of the world's most famous mysteries, the giant statues called Moai. It was first thought that these statues were merely heads, but excavation has shown almost all of them to have bodies. That a form of hieroglyphic writing on some of the statues, but nobody's been able to translate them. Very few of the statues were ever actually erected. Most were left in quarries or abandoned during transport. Archaeologists don't know why the statues were built, what they signified, and how they were transported and erected, or why they were abandoned and unfinished.
Come on. What spurns a people to sit there and go, right, what we're going to do for the next however long this is going to take us is we're going to build giant heads, okay? And we're just going to make them randomly randomly elongated heads. You know, when you turn 15, that's what you do. You become a head builder. Well, I don't get it. We have got yes, this is from Germanus and
look up Coral Castle also, lads.
Coral Castle. That's like a modern day building of the pyramids kind of wooging on there, man. Yep. We'll get to that after number 10 then. So before we get to 10,
number 10,
well, before we get there, Joe, what's your thoughts on the heads, guys?
My thoughts on the heads are obviously they are made by something other than stone prehistoric tools that they say, well, they were made and then a lot of them were left where they were or they were abandoned along the way. I think that signifies that they were built and or being built when cataclysm struck.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take on it. Now, who or what purpose they're for, I have no idea, but certainly more advanced than cavemen and Neanderthals and that prehistoric stuff. There's just so much more to the story we're not being told.
Don't be silly, Joe. Of course it was a caveman with a dinosaur bone, Scott. He just randomly made all these rocks.
And I have to go back to that old pesky fact that isn't Easter Island a Polynesian island?
It is?
Yep.
Yes. So,
You're saying
I think
somehow, some way, the heads in Mexico are
Well, I
somehow
think
tied to the heads and
Joe, they had a time machine, and one
I can see that.
one of the actual kind of side effects was squishy head syndrome, because they set off with heads looking like that, and they arrived in the other places with heads looking like that. Or they might have traveled the other way and whoop,
You notice how they all have dog ears and monobrows too?
Yeah.
Well, what I do think, though, is that we're talking about a culture that did eventually work its way across the Pacific Ocean, and end up in South America or vice versa, or, maybe started off in South America and ended up in the other direction. But that group of people, jumped from island to island, and maybe some of them people stayed behind on some of them islands.
You got to remember too, Scotty, that at the time these were built, there were no Easter Islands. It was something different, right?
It might have been attached to a continent.
Exactly.
Though it wasn't spotty islands like that.
Right. It could have been just regular.
A lot of those islands really weren't even islands. It was more like kind of continental,
Yes, very much so.
More continental, where they were connected by land, and you didn't have to jump from island to island.
What if, because it's an island now, what if that was more of like a mountain?
Exactly. It was probably like really high ground. It was a mountainous area.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that stuff was connected to Australia, and then Australia was connected to Asia via
it's like a land bridge if you were to follow up.
Yes, it was a land bridge. And so I don't think it would have really been that difficult for a civilization back then to make it to Egypt.
Plus we go for I think we've all kind of we wouldn't say we're like big into it, but we all like talking about expanding Earth as well.
Oh yes, big time.
So at one point, literally, the planet may have been smaller, the land mass is more locked together. I don't know. Just when you look at the planet, it makes sense that it's expanded over time. I don't know.
No, it does. It certainly does. The fissures and all the to me, the evidence points to it. And there's plenty of presentations that you can watch on YouTube on expanding Earth to give you a better idea if you're
incoming.
But finally, number 10.
No, before we get to number 10, I'm getting moist for number 10 already, but we've got a super chat coming.
Oh, coming in.
Yeah, it's coming in. It's coming in from the other dimension.
From our friends at Media.
Bring it in. Bring it. Ooh.
So glad Scott is recovered and back. Love this show.
Oh, Roosevelt, man, too kind, brother. And I'll tell you, thanks to channels like yours, I can keep up to date with all of the shenanigans and LARPing and all the other nonsense that goes on this.
And obviously, you see the results. What happens when chop? When we get chop, Scotty gets better. Look at this. It's great. Look at him.
It is.
Yeah. Ain't no tap in his future, but hey, you don't have to.
Exactly. And I'm still recovering from my surgical wound. That's going to take a couple of weeks or whatever. But in general, I'm doing peachy keen. I'm feeling excellent.
Very, very good. Now finally,
number 10. I need a drum roll because this is
Kev's very favorite. Gobekli Tepe in Turkey. dated 10,000 to 9,000 BC. Of course, Kev, it's radiocarbon dating, which is totally useless and pointless. So I don't know how old it actually is, but it's certainly old, making it to be generally considered the oldest religious structure ever found. The ancient site contains stone structures and pillars featuring carvings of various predatory animals. The construction of stone pillars weighing nearly 20 tons remain a mystery since they were erected at times when humans were thought to be simple hunter-gatherers, which obviously we were not. The discovery and ongoing excavation of Gobekli Tepe could eventually change our conception of prehistory forever, especially when it seems to have been built before the advent of things like agriculture, religion, written language, the wheel, pottery, the domestication of animals, and the use of anything other than super simple stone tools. So, yeah, certainly much more to the story that we're not just being told, and it's not innocent. That's the one thing that we need to understand. The deception about prehistoric and ancient sites is not an innocent mistake. It is a calculated thing that is being, or a plan, or whatever you want to call it, being perpetrated on us. And it's a shame because we're being robbed of the excitement of what our history actually was like. And if
it's like Kev said, it's occulted knowledge.
Yes, very much so. But if people understood it on even a basic level, Scott, I think you would find a much more voracious appetite for it, and a much more independent type of human instead of the kind of the dependent human being that has embraced the government god.
And that's the whole reason why they're keeping the truth from us. That's the whole reason why they're occulting that knowledge. It's to keep humanity under control.
And remember, guys, what we see at Gobekli Tepe, Scott, arguably at the most is only 10% of what's there. I mean, wow.
Yeah, we haven't even scratched the surface.
No way.
Any of this stuff. What we're seeing, like Gobekli Tepe and all of these megalithic sites, I mean, it is just the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. It is...
Especially when evidence points to the fact that Gobekli Tepe was buried, and not by water or anything like that.
It was intentionally buried.
The evidence points to it being intentionally buried.
That's what kind of really got me into it in the first place. I mean, I like archaeology and things, but it was when it was explained how, like you're saying here, guys, not only did some civilization build this, but think of the mammoth task and that decision being made.
Massive.
Okay, yeah, what we're going to do now? Well, we're just going to cover in and we're going to build an entire hillside. We're going to build hills because we're going to cover these things that we've spent how many years building? And when you look at the concentric circles and like I say, this small kind of window that we get into the location, the piece they have unearthed, I don't know, they're either doing something astronomical there, calendar-wise, like building the cycles. You see all the different animals as well, though, and there's animals from different parts of the world that shouldn't be on there. So how did they have knowledge of that?
That lends more credence to the fact that the continents may have been connected, and that humanity or the people at the time were able to kind of free roam across the globe a lot more easy than we can now, because there was oceans covering.
And weather also was much more consistent, meaning that there weren't seasons like there were. It was always tropical everywhere. That's the crazy thing about it.
They were able to observe these animals
like snow.
They were able to observe these animals in different places across the planet,
right,
and then go back and keep a record of them. Carve them into their stones and stuff, and be like, hey, look, we saw this crazy cat, this crazy tiger when we traveled here, and then we saw this crazy bird when we traveled over here, whatever. Yeah, I mean, I think it was just a record of wildlife that they had seen all over the planet at the time.
And that's why I think it's so important to read Pember's book, Earth's Earliest Ages, which you can download from the Wayback Machine. I think it's available there. But an unbelievable read from a person in the 19th century who makes the argument for a pre-Adamite civilization. Well, that would be, so we have this basically this version of human civilization. And then we got pre-flood. So then you've got, the antediluvian age. And then he makes an argument that before that, there was a pre-Adamite civilization.
See, that's where I go. I go,
that's where Gobekli Tepe, I think, comes in. And these ancient structures like that.
Well, look, there's a question from the chat here as well, Joe, and this is really good. It's from Kazi Barkley out there. Oh, hey, I see Johnny Whistle's in there as well, man. And Kristen saying, check my DMs. I will do that in just a moment, Kristen. But the question from the chat room, and this takes me to one of my favorite kind of mysteries as well. You see this all the time on Ancient Aliens, stuff like that, Joe. But Puma Punku, and these H-shaped blocks. Now, Kazi was asking whether they could have been made with some form, I like this, some form of 3D printing. Because look at the machine work that goes into the precision of crafting some of these things, guys. I mean, they might have a mold that they can literally pour the rock into with liquefaction if they get the right frequency. They might have some kind of just a template that they can pour the stuff in, and that would explain how they're literally all exactly the same. They look machine engineered.
Yeah, they do. I mean, it's like a level of precision that even a lot of modern tools can't even do.
Well, I've seen that Christopher Dunn that does the Pyramid Power Plant, Giza Power Plant. He's a machinist, and he takes these into the lab, and it shows you, the precision that they're made with, dude. It's craziness.
Yeah, and some of them blocks, I mean, you can't even slide, a piece of paper between them or anything. I mean, they're perfectly locked into place.
Yes,
and it's, I mean,
well, I kind of think that those are antediluvian sites, if you ask me. Those are. And then you get into the ones in India, and I think that those and Gobekli Tepe are evidence of those pre-Adamite sites. And I just sent you a link. This is from Gaia.com.
Oh, whoa. Oh, hell no, Joe.
Well, I can't get you to do Gaia?
Did you just try and infiltrate my little operation here? Did you try and sneak one under the radar? When I
should have coughed, shouldn't I?
Oh, hang on. Like, I'm trying to deal with mods. I'm dealing with chat, and Joe thinks, what I'm going to do while he's distracted? I'm going to slip in some blue chicken bullshit. No danger, Joe. No danger, dude. I tell you, there's some websites we go to, and there's some really questionable websites we go to, but no way, dude. No, I can't do
listen to this.
Joe, if it was from the Sun or the Express, Kev would have been happy.
Okay,
Kev
so anyway,
not playing.
Here, on the top of every Hindu temple or pyramid, one can find a Vimana, and often they are rounded saucer-like objects, which certain theorists believe were the vehicles of extraterrestrials. Eric von Daniken
lost it, Wookie. He's lost it.
Yes, points out the modern sightings that created our perception of UFOs that look very similar to the Vimanas of ancient India. Now, von Daniken also points out that the depiction of Shiva flying on his bird, Garuda, could easily have been a primitive description of an airplane or spacecraft. Garuda was known for dropping bombs, flying to the moon, and bringing Shiva to different locations throughout the solar system. In trying to explain the site of future to future generations, the elders' story of a god flying around on a giant bird or bird-like craft might sound ridiculous and be considered mere mythological to those who may have never witnessed it. But when we take a closer look at the Vimanas, the description of the sounds they made and the way they look when they took off began to resemble jet propulsion more and more. One translation of a passage in the Vedic Mahabharata describes a Vimana. Quote, "The Vimana had all necessary equipment. It could not be conquered by the gods or demons, and it radiated light and reverberated with a deep rumbling sound. Its beauty captivated the minds of all who beheld it. Visvakarma, the lord of its design and construction, had created it by the power of his austerities, and its outline, like that of the sun, could not be easily delineated." The passage speaks of Krishna's cohort, an epic hero of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, describing a trip he took in a Vimana into the heavens, where he saw thousands of airborne chariots and other massive Vimana that was 7 stories tall, much like Enoch's trip taken up in a wheeled chariot. Von Daniken says he believes that this could have been a primitive interpretation of a trip to the mothership, from which the many Vimanas seen on Earth could have originated.
Hold on, Joe. We got a super chat coming in. So I don't want to.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil the fun here.
See ya, Scotty. How do ley lines tie into all this? Smoke 'em if ya goat 'em. Brown chicken, brown cow. Woo, oy, oy.
The AI's getting good. AI's getting good. Well, now we get into the Drona Parva nuclear war. Listen to this. One of the strangest stories of the ancient Hindu Vedas.
Wait a minute. I'm just checking. Are we still like on Gaia?
Shh, quiet.
Oh, God.
Come from a translation of the Drona Parva, the 7th book of the Mahabharata. The book describes Drona, a warrior appointed as a leader of an army in the Kurukshetra war, and his ensuing death in that battle. The story fits in with themes seen elsewhere in the Mahabharata and other ancient texts that detail the difficulties of war, but this particular book provides some descriptions that sound eerily similar to the effects of nuclear war. Explosions that level everything, animals screaming and engulfed in flames, pregnant women's babies dying, and metal armor melting onto the skins of warriors who wear them all sounds like the result of nuclear blast. It mentions birds falling from the sky due to a single projectile charged with all the power of the universe, as bright as 1,000 suns. Listen to this. Quote, "We beheld in the skies what appeared to us to be a mass of scarlet cloud resembling the fierce flames of a blazing fire. From that mass, many blazing missiles flashed, and tremendous roars like the noise of 1,000 drums beaten at once. And from it fell many weapons winged with gold, and thousands of thunderbolts with loud explosions, and many hundreds of fiery wheels."
And crack troop blue chickens coming down with the missiles.
Oh my God. Now, Kev, putting aside where this is coming from.
Right.
Oh, come on.
So you'd be mad if I had a subscription to him, would you? I'm kidding.
Putting aside where this is coming from.
You mean the major cog in the Truther Industrial Complex, the elephant in the bedroom, in the living room right now?
Yeah. You must admit, though, that the Vedic tales from like the Mahabharata and what we're discussing, there's definitely something to that.
Dude,
some major woo action going on there. Especially the descriptions of, like Joe was just saying, what appeared to be nuclear war, battles in the sky, what sounded like basically craft flying around shooting at each other using energy weapons, laser weapons, and then you've had some of these sites. I think what is it in Pakistan or maybe even India where they've uncovered basically rock that has been melted into glass that you only see like at nuclear test sites.
Yeah.
You know, so there's something crazy.
Check this out as well, then, Scott. Check this out as well, right? Because this is on the same topic, and I was just having shits and giggles because of that website and how it factors into a lot of the kind of
I know.
you know. And I swear to God, if Corey Good retweets this show or something, I will. I'm out. I'm done. I retire. I'm gone. And I blame Joe for it all, right? I was like, I honestly thought I was on air with Jordan Sather or something there, man. Don't do this to me. But no, these things here, and they're called stupas. Now, they're all over, India, Pakistan, places like that, the Hindu kind of stuff. But when you actually start to look at them, Scott, it's almost some of the, I'm trying to think if this is the actual right ones. There's little ones as well, but when you look into it, they're almost like cooling towers at nuclear reactors.
Yeah, like the domes that you see
Yes.
at the nuclear sites.
Yeah.
I never even thought of it that way.
Yeah.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
And
they also match up as well with there's other little ones, there's more kind of ornamental and they're in water and things, but they match up perfectly with what you see in hydropower stations as well. It's obviously, some kind, like we say the pyramids were machines and energy generators and stuff like that. I think this was a different way of doing it,
Possibly.
Yep.
And they also somewhat resemble UFOs.
Yes. The Vimanas and things like that. I mean, they build their temples like the Vimanas.
Yeah.
Just take a look at them.
I just find that interesting. And again, it's more evidence that there was another civilization, ancient, with this type of technology that is not brass hammers. It's not prehistoric tools. It's much more advanced.
Check
than
this
that,
out here, Joe. You've got this here. It's the Vimana, the ancient craft, and I don't know if it's the Vedics or one of these kind of documents. But then you come forward and look at the temples they're building. They're almost
they're almost right.
They're paying homage.
Yeah, they're paying homage, and they're mimicking what they what had they've seen in the past.
Yeah.
What occurred in the past. It's just like how you have the Great Pyramid, and then every pyramid after that just wasn't as good. It was because the culture afterward, they saw the Great Pyramid sitting there, and they were like, "Holy crap! Look at that thing! Whoa!"
Yeah, we'll try and mimic it, and it just never is the
try
same.
to mimic it. We're going to try to pay homage to it, and they just didn't have the technological know-how to make it the way that the original pyramid was made. So
and then you've got
afterwards.
Then you got ass pirates like Zawi Hawass that try to give us the just how do you believe that crap after you just see and all these other megalithic sites? It's just ridiculous. Egyptology is absolutely rubbish.
Yep.
When it comes to the Great Pyramid.
Remember,
the pyramid has nothing to do with the Egyptians. Nothing.
Remember the whole what do you call it now? Scan Pyramids project where they found the void, the new void. Well, that's where Zahi Hawass works now. He's like their liaison between the Egyptian and
somebody's got to keep the ass battery afloat, right, and going.
Yeah, basically he's there to just gatekeep and.
Yeah, it's like the CIA, Scott. You're never out of it. You're always still kind of contracted to,
cover up what's really in the void.
But there was that thing I was talking about there, Scott. And you were away, Joe. But these are called stupas. And they kind of very much look like power plants. There's a power plant there, and then you've got these things here,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
Move that back up.
Where do you want to see what one?
All the way up. Yeah, that one right there. Second from the left.
This one?
See that? You're telling me that doesn't look like a booby?
Oh, it certainly does. It most certainly does.
Just saying.
We see phallic symbols, and now we're seeing mammary symbols around the
Camera
world.
symbols, yes, very
Yes,
important.
mammary symbols. There's a new one for you.
See it.
Now,
Actually, that's all.
there's the demonetization gone then, you see. So where are we going now, gents, before we depart for the evening? Oh, I know where we're going. I want to ask the audience a question. Okay, I want to ask the audience to cast their minds back to a time when none of them were alive. Now, you got World War One.
Yes.
And we often talk about the events which lead countries into
I can't wait to see the answers for this one.
So this is your chance in the chat room, to answer this question. Now, what event was it, and it's very famous, especially if you're in conspiracy land, what event was it that led America to get involved in the First World War? So while we're waiting for that, we should have some kind of jingle elevator music. See?
Yeah.
Nobody's going with me. Nobody's going. Joe's an actual musician.
Yes. What event brought us into World War One? Brought the United States into World War One? Go for it, chat.
Yes, go for it. We've got some music on while we wait. It's a new version of the old one we've got. Come on, here we go. People are Googling frantically right now. If they Google it, they're going to get the new timeline. The Lusitania, says John Nelson. The Lusitania. Right, let's see how many more come in here. Somebody said Samsara. Somebody said Krishna the Giant. Oh, that wasn't what started World War One.
Hey, who knows? Maybe.
Maybe, dude. Maybe.
Come on, people.
Come on. You know it. Lusitania, I think. That's 2 for Lusitania. We're going to get the consensus reality forming in a moment anyway, where people might just jump on with it. The shooting of the Archduke of Ferdinand. That's what started the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But the Twin Towers.
See, the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand is what kicked off the whole thing. We're talking about what brought the United States into the war.
Yep. How did they rope them into the Lincoln shooting? Mad whistles. Whistles. Okay, so we had a couple for the Lusitania, Pearl Harbor. That was the Second World War. We're talking World War One, 1914 to 1918.
World War One.
Yep. Around the Masons. Not far off, but hey-ho. How many people then think it was the Lusitania? Too easy? All right, we've had 3 for Lusitania, and all of us guys agree it's the Lusitania as well.
I think we've all came to a consensus that it's the Lusitania.
Okay, so...
Hey.
Okay then, so if we come over here, if we just come over here for a moment, and if all you people out there just want to listen to about 1 minute of this, hold on to your seats. In fact, adjust your televisions and your timelines, because we have jumped to somewhere new. Take a listen to this.
The Black Tom explosion.
Whoa.
Right along with this video, I'd like to get back to the Statue of Liberty in just a bit. But up next, I want to tackle one of my personal favorite Mandela effects, and that is number 3, the Black Tom explosion. I consider myself a massive history buff who's addicted to documentaries and historical accounts of previous events and wars.
Me too.
I can't get enough of this stuff. So the most troubling Mandela effect to me is what is considered the first terrorist attack in America. No, it wasn't Pearl Harbor. No, it wasn't 9/11. It was a German attack on American soil all the way back in 1916. Sound familiar? It doesn't to me. The setting is July 30th, 1916 in Jersey City, New Jersey, on Black Tom Island. Black Tom Island was a major ammunition and small arms depot, providing arms to allies during World War I. 2 German agents working there, posing as guards, set off small fires all over the island, eventually setting off millions of pounds of explosives. This is called the Black Tom explosion. Now, the strange part about this Mandela effect is, because it is so big and so important, it causes massive ramifications throughout time. So it not only changes this one point in history, but it changes multiple...
Well, we'll pause it there, right? But yeah.
Never heard of it, ever.
Black Tom Island and...
Yeah, never heard of it. And I'm going to correct people one more time. We're talking about the event that brought the United States into World War I, not the event, not the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So
if somebody had said to me anyway, what was the first attack on U.S. soil by foreigners? You know, and
I
like,
would never have thought that. I would have thought like the War of 1812.
well, I would have probably gone, you know, probably like recent times, Pearl Harbor. You know, that was a real attack and things like that. I'd never heard of something in World War One where you had like spies blowing up munition sites.
no,
But not only that,
no,
not only that, it went on to damage the Statue of Liberty. And you can go and check this out, folks. They say the Statue of Liberty,
I never heard of that.
nobody's ever been able to get up into the flame. No, it's been damaged ever since 1916. I'm not
crazy,
making it up.
but do you not remember the renovation that went on in like 86 where they put the gold on top of it? Before there was no gold on it. And they put the gold flame on it like in the 80s, because I remember watching it. I remember watching it on TV. It was July 4th fireworks or something. They had basically the reopening. There's like a grand reopening of the Statue of Liberty after its renovation. And one of the things they did, I remember clearly, was renovate the torch. And if you're going to renovate the torch, why would you? How could it be damaged?
first of all, I've never heard of this Black Tom incident.
Never.
I'm a huge history buff, and you would think something like that,
That would be huge. Unbelievable information. An
Huge.
attack on
Here you
U.S. soil?
And here you go. And I mean, I know Wikipedia gets criticised, but folks, there's people in chat room saying it's World War II, this happened, it was something else. That's our whole point, folks. We don't agree that this happened when they're saying it happened either. I come from a place where the Lusitania was the reason that World War I, the Americans got involved. And that's it. I mean, that's always been my history. That's where I grew up. I don't know where I am now. I don't know when I am. I don't know what bloody timeline we're on, because there's too much changing. There's just too much.
Way too much.
It says here,
Not a subtle variation.
yeah, the Black Tom explosion was an act of sabotage by German agents to destroy US-made munitions that were to be supplied to the Allies in World War I. The explosions, which occurred on July the 30th, 1916, in whose reality? And they caused $22 million worth of damage, and that kind of comes in at about $450 million today, folks. And yet none of us here seem to know anything about this. Says this incident, which happened prior to US entry into World War I, was famously damaged, also famously damaged the Statue of Liberty.
I mean, you would think something that huge, an explosion that big occurring,
It
and
registered
an
on the
attack of
Richter
that
scale.
magnitude,
Yeah, it registered on the Richter scale, for goodness sake.
that would be something that would be hammered in history class. You know what I mean? Like, that would be something that I would totally remember. And then, for them to say that was the main reason why the United States got involved in World War I. I mean, that's crazy, because, like I said, I've never heard of it. And I've always been taught that the reason why we got involved in World War I is because of the sinking of the Lusitania.
Why on earth would we even have heard about the Lusitania if this was the reason we would always have been told about Black Tom Island? It's mad.
Have you even heard of like old timers or anything talking about the explosion, witnessing
look at this here. Look at this here, Kev.
Okay.
Check this out. This was in 1986, because I remember seeing this on TV. It was a huge deal. This was an enormous deal, and never once did they speak about any sort of damage to the torch from a World War I incident. It's unbelievable. It's basically, it was a giant renovation. Listen to this. Leading up to Liberty Weekend, the administration had to plan how to transport not only President Reagan and the First Lady, but members of the White House press corps and thousands of government officials. Many of the nation's military reservists were called up to assist the festivities, fulfilling roles in security, transportation of dignitaries, logistics, and other capacities. In addition to the years of work and planning on the statue itself by the commission, Various agencies within the executive branch work together with each other and state and local agencies to put off a large-scale celebration, the likes of which have rarely been seen. The transcripts of this press briefing from the day of Liberty Weekend, blah, 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 blah. And when it came to the actual ceremony's time to begin, there were some complaints about the long waits associated with a live television pageant and the weather, but overall, the event left many participants awed by its scale. Beyond that, the Liberty Weekend Independence celebration got the nation talking about the 4th of July and the history of the United States, yada, yada, yada. So,
Yeah, not one mention of it.
not one mention of it, but they totally look at the picture of the Statue of Liberty. You're telling me that at that time they didn't fix any damage?
Okay,
They
listen.
got scaffolding all the way up to the torch.
We'll listen to another bit of this because it carries on a little bit about the statue. And was it loud enough for you guys? Because there was people in the chat room again saying it was quite quiet.
I didn't hear anything.
Oh, you didn't hear it? Was it all right, Scott?
I could hear it,
Right,
but
I'll try it again. Here we go.
Multiple things, and we're going to get into that as we go on. The first of which is now we're told that this is the turning point as to why the U.S. joined World War I. But I was always told it was because of the sinking of the Lusitania. So it feels like a weird retcon of history for me, but what do you think? If this was just a simple attack, sure, I could accept possibly that I'd never heard of it, but it gets stranger. The explosion was so big that it would have registered as a 5 to a 5.5 earthquake on the Richter scale. It was felt as far away as Philadelphia and Maryland. This explosion destroyed more than 100 rail cars, 13 warehouses, and left a 375-foot by 175-foot crater in the ground. The damage was estimated to be $20 million back then, which is now closer to $470 million when adjusted for inflation. Amazingly enough, only 5 people died, although thousands were injured. Now here is where New York comes into this Mandela effect. Every window in a 25-mile radius was completely shattered, including thousands in Lower Manhattan and Times Square. The Brooklyn Bridge was shaken, but the most troubling piece of information is that the Statue of Liberty was greatly damaged as a result of the Black Tom explosion. What? Is this the Twilight Zone? The Statue of Liberty's torch-holding arm was greatly damaged by shrapnel and actually resulted in it closing down to the public, supposedly. But we'll get to that in a minute. The damage to Lady Liberty's arm and skirt was estimated to be $100,000 back then, which today would be over $2.3 million. I grew up pre and post 9/11. After that attack, terrorism is all anyone could talk about. How is it that despite that, I never once heard about the Black Tom explosion?
Exactly.
Especially
Yes,
considering
exactly.
that the attack
Never
on the World Trade
once.
Center in 2001 was touted as being the first major attack on domestic soil.
Exactly.
Why was the Black Tom explosion not mentioned during the extensive coverage of attacks to the U.S.?
Right, we'll leave it there. But yeah, guys, I don't know. We were discussing this before the show, and I know you were digging up links and things, Joe, and running about getting your coffee and stuff. But myself and Scott were saying, when you start looking at all the Mandelas, all the changes, you get to the point where you have to ask, are we where we started out? Or have we changed? Have we crossed into some kind of other timeline?
Something is weird. Something is weird.
I don't know. It's too much. It's too much. I mean, let's ask the chat room as well. Whereabouts is the Statue of Liberty? Is
Yes.
it on? Yeah. What?
Chat room. What is the island called that the Statue of Liberty is located on? Go ahead and answer that. for
Governor's
us.
Island, isn't it?
What's that, Joe?
Is it Governor's Island?
No.
Go for it, chat.
Go for it, chat. Take your pick between Ellis Island and Liberty Island.
Well, Liberty Island, because Ellis Island is where Ellis the immigration building and museum is.
Well, somebody in the chat room, Guy, says, I wish you could get Klaus Donner on. Guy, I've had Klaus Donner on, but unfortunately, that show got culled along with the 1,600 other videos I had to get rid of. But Klaus Donner, brilliant stuff. But me and Scott, I think we're
Well, I think look, we're getting a lot of Liberty Islands in there. So
Kev, I'm
with you.
gonna put this in the chat box here.
we also got Ellis.
And I'm
showing
going to
up.
put this in the chat. If anybody wants to see, this was the rededication of the Statue of Liberty, the full ceremonies on YouTube. And I just find that interesting because it was such a massive undertaking.
Look at it. We've got, I think it's split. We've got Ellis. We've got Stan. I'm on Ellis Island, dude.
No, it's Liberty Island, but yeah.
It's just one of those things. Maybe it's just easy for people to get them confused with each other. But
who knows?
I always thought it was Ellis Island. At the Statue of Liberty.
No. Ellis Island and Liberty Island are two distinct different islands. So you got Ellis Island, and the only reason why I know is because my grandfather passed through Ellis Island.
Because he's a New Yorker.
No, because he was an Italiano, and then he came in and settled in Connecticut.
He was in the mob.
This is before all that.
Did he make people sleep with the fishies?
No, I don't think so.
Did he hang out with Tony Soprano?
He looks like
he's the only gangster I know.
Possibly.
So I think, Kev, I think this one probably I would say is not a Mandela. I just think we're talking about two islands that probably get confused with each other because they're right next to each other.
And let's take that out the equation.
Yeah.
Black Tom Island. That didn't happen.
That's crazy, dude. Crazy.
Now the whole Black Tom thing, that is just, I've never heard of that historical event before. And you would think something that significant would be taught in history and talked about
huge
in history.
Yeah.
And you bringing that to my attention before the show. I mean, you saw my face. I was like, what?
Yep.
Are you serious? Are you serious? Because it was the sinking of the Lusitania that has always been.
So what could happen? So what's happened then? I mean, a big event like this. I mean, you have to sit back and question what the hell's going on there. And I know none of us are old enough to remember it. We were never there. We've always been told, or at least we think we were told, it was the Lusitania. We now find out it was something completely different that had ramifications and ripples throughout time, like this is talking about. The fact that the torch and the things on the Statue of Liberty were basically, well, for lack of a better term, fucked for years after it,
right.
you know? And yet people remember going up there, but we're told now you couldn't have been up there.
They did.
I know, dude. I even remember seeing, like, I don't know if it was a movie or a documentary or something, but these people were up in that thing. It was like back in the day, shaky videos and VCRs and things. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, that's why I put that in there, just so people could see, that look, this is the celebration or rededication of it, and they had done from top to bottom. They totally renovated the Statue of Liberty and brought it, did the work that desperately needed to be done. And it was an unbelievable, I mean, it was just 86. That was like they had not done something like that. They are actually comparing, I know Trump wanted to do a 4th of July parade, military parade in Washington, D.C. And they were comparing it to that in 86 just because of the unbelievable amount of logistics that goes into something like that, Just it doesn't happen too often because of just how difficult it is to pull something like that off.
Well, somebody in the chat room says maybe, the Americans didn't want to admit to that attack on American soil and kind of covered it up, hid it away. And could it be? I don't know, but I don't
know, but that's an awful big one to hide, though. How do you hide something like that?
Yeah, how do you hide an explosion that happens in a major metropolitan area like that, where that there's going to be people for generations that remember that?
Well, let's think of this, right? Let's drop the Mandela thing, because Mandela, for me, it's got too many kind of weird and debunky kind of connotations to it. It's some kind of quantum kind of errors, quantum glitching in the matrix, something like that. But what's causing it? When we spoke earlier, Scott, about 2012, the Mayan calendar, it just ended, people says. And we were saying, well, it never ended. It was a cycle. It goes back to the start. I mean, what were they trying to point us towards? And forget the 2012 date, because we put that value to that. They didn't work in Gregorian calendars. They were looking at signs in the skies.
We're just talking about a period of time. Ooh, we got a super chat about to come in.
It's Nancy.
Oh,
I love Nancy.
Oh my, yeah, great.
Nancy and I sometimes have a quick chat on Facebook, and then like 2 hours later, we're still going strong. And I'm gonna shame Nancy. She's into some really good woo, Joe. I'll tell you in a second.
Oceania has always been at war with Eurasia. Unless, of course, the Ministry of Truth switches it to East Asia. Very Orwellian. Never heard of this event.
Nancy, we're on the same page, because I was going to say, I mean, how easy is it now for them to change history when most of it's stored digitally anyway?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
So, Joe, what do you think? Is it merging timelines? Is it memories going wrong? I mean, what, attention span short?
I have no idea how to even start going down that way, because, with quantum, when you start talking quantum, and there's so many possibilities. No, sorry. There's so many probabilities.
See? You see that everything's about probability. That's why the whole intent thing comes into things. If you start wishing for things, you better be careful, because you're starting to narrow down probabilities and possibilities along the way,
Yeah.
But talking to that kind of thing, that's what I was going to say. We're going to get Nancy on one night, whether it's on here or on KBS, because she talks about quantum healing and stuff like that. She's into all the quantum woo. So yeah. I definitely think, I think if we mention it on here in front of hundreds of people, maybe. I'm only pulling your leg, Nancy. You come on whenever you like. But guys, we're almost out of time. And I think that was a good way to end the show, with the whole kind of Orwellian thing, because that's literally what we're seeing right now. You can look at the memory hole and stuff like that as well, the censorship going on. 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 if the party says so. And that's where we're getting to. Look at Joe. Yeah. What have you found, Joe?
No, there's some kid tomfoolery afoot. That's all.
Oh, right.
I'm looking for some. I'm just trying to dig up anything on this explosion. And it's unbelievable. There's so much on it, yet I've never heard of it.
Yeah. Kev, you brought up, have we been shifting into some other timeline or something like that? What has changed? And, we talked about the 2012 thing, and like you said, it's not just that specific date of 2012. I think we're talking about this kind of slow phasing. We're talking about a period of time where things just kind of slowly...
Wow. Big shout out to Reaper there. Sorry, Scotty. No message, but Reaper, if you put something in the chat room, I'll keep my eye on it.
Thank you so much.
And you brought up the Mayan calendar, and it just didn't end. What they were suggesting was like the beginning of a new cycle. And that also coincides with, we're not in the age of Pisces anymore. We've shifted into the age of Aquarius, right?
And Scott, that shift, that shift we were saying before the show, I mean, we were kind of laughing. Folks, we talk about getting jet lag when you go across the Atlantic. And literally what we're kind of theorizing and hypothesizing about here is traversing dimensions or timelines. And we've all been talking for how long now about, we're all dizzy or...
Remember that they control our reality. There are so many beta tests being run on the unsuspecting population. Have a great week, everyone. Burn one.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There is. And even this Mandela thing as well. This is the perfect kind of thing where they could jump on and try and manipulate to see how they can literally, change history, make us remember something that never happened,
Yeah, and another possibility is, how we were talking, remember Aaron and Melissa Dykes did that really good video about time and how it seems like time is speeding up, and really kind of correlated it to how we're just being overloaded with information and technology.
Much data. Too much data.
You got to wonder if maybe some of this Mandela effect or whatever this phenomenon is it just because we're experiencing so much information overload in our minds that we're
Remember,
having a hard time
we're
being
like
able
computers,
to
Scott.
accurately.
Yeah, we're like computers, you know, and we've got the random access memory that's we used from day to day, and then we've got the kind of read-only stuff, the stuff that's been stored there for a long time. And what happens when you start to use that memory time and time and time again, the computer, and you start firing in faster and faster information, Scott? Eventually, that memory's not going to do you anymore. It's not. Maybe that's where we're at. Maybe
Yeah.
that's where we're at.
Look what happens when a hard drive is written over and over and over again with information. It eventually starts to degrade. You know,
Yep.
you start getting glitches in the hard drive. So,
And before I wrap it up, like I was saying, you know, the jet lag thing, we've all been saying, you know, we've been out of whack. Some people can't sleep. We talk about 5G and we put it down to the magnetics of the planet and stuff like that as well. You know, I think if we start changing timelines and moving through cycles in space, maybe that has a bit of a physiological kickback, you know? Just a
I think
little
so.
bitty. Yeah, when you move from one historical timeline to another, shit happens.
when
Yeah.
you have a time wave fluctuate through your body, I think that probably does a little something.
Absolutely.
You think?
Hey, if gravitational waves can be picked up, what does a time wave do to you, Joe?
Oh, exactly. Exactly. What does happen when a time wave? It sounds like the start of a bad joke.
It looks
You
like
know?
you and Scott are actually getting ready to kiss. It looks like you're licking Scott's ear.
And
Scott's enjoying it, which is worse. Well, there's
I
Reaper.
need to,
2
I
secs,
need
Scotty,
a
2 secs.
creepy joke.
There's
Oh.
Reaper in the chat room. I have just turned my modem solely to 4G, turned off the 5G, see how it goes. You see, little things like that we can do. We can do that. We can't make 5G go away, unfortunately, but we can do what we can in our own kind of four walls in our own environment. They haven't taken that over just yet, you know? So, yeah.
no, happen.
Well, guys, we're out of time. We've hit our...
Yeah, we wait just a cotton picking minute.
Oh,
now.
have you found something for us, Joe?
Well, no, we have so much left. What are we gonna do? It looks like we'll just have to continue.
Oh, dude, I'm up for continuing. It's just I know you've got work in the morning, and usually
I do know. I said, but you know, we'll save this for another night.
Oh,
And folks, I just want to say before we go, of how grateful I am to have the good people like you out there supporting Kev and supporting this live stream. Really, kind of gives me, you know, a little bit of hope for humanity. Not much, but a little bit. And I also want to tell just a guy out there, smoke if you got 'em, baby.
Oh,
Brown
Dave.
chicken, brown cow.
Brown chicken, brown cow. And Joe, I still can't believe you went Gaia on me, dude.
I did, you know, and it was kind of important because it just goes to show you that there's little nuggets of truth in everything.
Well, the best disinfo agents give you 95% truth.
That's right.
It's just that one glaring lie that you got to be on your toes for, like blue chickens, you know?
And because I didn't see any blue chicken dropping or anything like that, I thought it was legit.
Dude,
Just
you know I love you. It would take more than Corey Good and Jordan Sather and a blue chicken to come between me and you, Joe.
that's what I'm saying.
Don't
baby.
touch my sheep. Blue
So
sheep.
without,
Blue
so
sheep
without
are good.
that, or with that, I should say. Now we're out of time.
We are out of time. We are. But I'll be back tomorrow, folks. And we are going space heavy this week on the Kev
can't wait.
Baker Show. Well, we're coming up for the 50th anniversary of the faked moon landings. Come on. You know?
I know.
So tomorrow I've got...
and by the way, we could be weeks from the launch of Richard Branson's spacecraft with him on board. So who knows?
Wait a minute. Reaper is Ozzy Anzac from over on TFR, dude. That's Brett. Big Brett.
There, Ozzy. What's up?
Dude. Loving it, man. Loving it. Yeah. I seen somebody in the chat room saying they were from Glasgow. You know, we're getting locals tuning in now as well. That's scary.
Awesome.
No, it's not. I don't want to be starting to get recognized locally, Joe. I like my anonymity. Yeah, so like I was saying, we've got Brendan Drackler on tomorrow. He's my astrophysics PhD student geek. Love him to bits, man. He'll have his NASA badge in the background just to trigger people, which I think makes him doubly cool. And then we're staying on space the night after that. We're going to be talking to Dr. David Wormflash, and we're going to be talking about the moon, the history of the moon. You know, so I think next week we're going to be really, really hitting some highlights. And I'm still waiting on an answer back from the gentleman that done yesterday's Mandela effects video. So hopefully, folks, by Wednesday or Thursday, we'll have him on the hook.
Looks promising. I think Kev's going to be
I
able
hope
to.
so.
He's accepted me. He's read things. So it's like Geordie Rose. You just leave it hanging out there and try and collapse the possibilities and probabilities in my quantum magician way that I do. Ooh. Yes. So until next time, folks, we are going to love you and leave you. And I'm going to find Joe's favourite music because I love to see him doing the sex robot on the way out. Take it away, Joe. There he goes. Look at that. How can you not fall in love with that face, dude? Holy hell. The apocalypse must be near, folks. I'm getting a cup of coffee made for me at this time of night. Woo!
Really?
Really?